Welcome back to the Center of the City podcast. I'm your host, Wade Brill, and I am so glad you are here. This podcast explores how we can stay centered and grounded amid the chaos of living in this modern day world. So today, in the solo episode, I wanted to explore how we can bring our mindfulness practice or cultivate a mindfulness practice when it comes to sex and intimacy. In a world where we are starved as humans for connection, we are yearning to feel more deeply connected to ourselves, to something larger than ourselves, and to each other. Intimacy and sex are great vehicles and ways that we can practice being present and embodied and find that sense of pleasure of what it's like to be in this human body and what it's also like to be sharing and creating pleasure with somebody else. I learned about this book from Brotto. She is a PhD and wrote a book called Better Sex Through Mindfulness, How Women Can Cultivate Desire. I learned about this book through one of my mentors, Diana Winston, when discussing the theme of pleasure. That'd be a great podcast episode for us to dive in deeper here at Center in the City, since we haven't done something this provocative, I should say. And I'm really excited to get more intimate with you all as you listen. So wherever you are listening, on a walk, cooking in the kitchen, driving, I welcome you to settle in and let's get centered. Before we mindfully step into today's episode, I want to remind you that the Mindfulness Winter Retreat is happening January 16th to the 18th. And this will be a beautiful weekend in a cozy cabin on the gorgeous Whidbey Island. This will be an intimate retreat, meaning we'll keep it to a small group and really invite us all to deepen our mindfulness and meditation practice through sitting, through walking meditation, through group discussions. And because we will be quieting the noise in our life and learning to tune deeply into our own soul and our own unique voices, we're going to also be setting intentions for the new year. So this is going to be a really beautiful weekend where we're slowing down, we're regulating our nervous systems, we're shedding the shit that doesn't serve us, and we're turning our gaze and our bodies towards what does. And so that we can fully step into this new year feeling really embodied and feeling like we can focus our energy on what matters most. So if this speaks to you, I welcome you to head on over to the show notes and check it out. It's retreat.centeredinthecity.org. If you've worked with me before or have ordered my book, 100 Mindful Moments to Balance and Energize, you know that I have this framework that I developed over a decade ago called the Mindful Hand of Self-Care. Now, my husband always jokes that the mindful hand of self-care can also become an intimacy partner. And today on this episode, we're actually going to kind of use that lens. We're going to explore how this mindful hand of self-care helps us build more presence when it comes to intimacy in our lives. The ring finger, the part of the mindful hand of self-care, the ring finger represents space. And when I talk about space, I'm talking about what we allow in our physical environment, the lights, the colors, textures. But we're also talking about, when we talk about space, the people we surround ourselves with, the energy that's in our space. And intimacy is one of the richest spaces we can often neglect. If you're somebody who lives on autopilot a lot or says words like, I'm so stressed, I'm so busy, I don't have time, or you feel disconnected from your body, you live most of the time in your head, or your partner follows that same rhythm of they live in their head and they are disconnected from their bodies, or they're always wrapped up in the busyness, the doing. This episode is for you. because we're going to talk about how to bring more presence, curiosity, compassion, and some actionable tools into our lives to support us building more intimacy. We're going to be learning from Dr. Lori Brotto, a clinical psychologist and sex researcher who wrote the book Better Sex Through Mindfulness: How Women Can Cultivate Desire. And in this book, she talks about how mindfulness can help low desire, can support people who don't really feel like they have a strong sex drive, people who might experience pain, people who might have difficulty getting aroused, and how they can simply find deeper pleasure by building more connection. So let's talk about why intimacy and why sex can get lost in the busyness of life and the autopilotness of life. So what's happening, right? When we live these busy, full lives, we end up multitasking, right? How many of us feel like we're talking to our partners or loved ones or family members on the phone or face to face, and we're also doing something else? Right? We're constantly multitasking, constantly connected to screens. If they're not in our hands, they're probably on the wall right beside us, whether that's a TV or there's computers nearby. We're busy parenting. We're busy living our careers, busy with meetings, back-to-back calls. And so when we're on this conveyor belt of life in the doing, checking things off, moving forward, rushing from here to there, it's really hard to build intimacy. Intimacy can get squeezed out. Now, as I talk about intimacy, as I talk about the body, as I talk about women's bodies in particular, I want to just highlight that I'm speaking from a general sense and using some of the research from Dr. Brotto. But I also want to just highlight that it can be way more complicated if you are somebody that's experienced trauma in your body or sexual assault or rape. And if that is the case, I welcome you to really listen to this podcast episode with a sense of lightness and a sense of maybe it can spark an idea or spark a place that you're ready and maybe willing to do some healing work. And I really welcome you to reach out to a professional psychologist or therapist to support you navigating that. And I also want to just say that we as humans, I think, all have really interesting and complicated relationships to our bodies, whether you identify as a female or a male. Your bodies and our bodies, like, we are told that they should look like a certain way and we should clothe it in a certain way, and the whole pornography industry, right? So I just want to say there's so many layers here of what's marketed to us and what's also just in our culture and what's in movies, that I want to name that all, but we're not going to go into the weeds of that all. In Brotto's book, she notes that many women experience sexual difficulties, whether it's lack of interest, lack of arousal, pain, and a big part of the culprit is not about being a bad partner, right? We can so easily label ourselves as being a bad partner, or I'm broken, or that thing just doesn't work. But really, it's not about that, Dr. Brotto talks about. It's really that our mind is somewhere else. And we're going to dive into that in more depth. Now, when I say the mind is somewhere else, I'm really talking about our attention. So when we're in intimate moments, maybe when we're kissing somebody, or we're starting to practice physical touch, or even just making eye contact with our partner, we might notice that our attention is somewhere else. Our attention is hijacked by the never-ending list of things to do, the emails that weren't sent, the shopping that needs to happen later, the dinner that needs to be cooked, the laundry that needs to be folded. Our attention gets totally hijacked by stress, by worry. And when this happens, Brotto writes about this in more depth. She has a whole chapter called Sex in a Multitasking World. she talks about we're used to, in our full lives, used to shifting and context shifting a lot, and our attention is shifting fast. And so we're carrying a lot of cognitive load throughout the day. And it's hard to bring our attention into the present moment, right? For some who practice meditation in a formal way, you might notice you've said to yourself, or you've heard somebody else say, "Oh, I can't meditate. My mind is so loud." And when we get into intimate moments, that's when the noise starts to slow down and our minds maybe get even louder. So it can be really hard to bring our attention to sex, to intimacy, to our bodies, to connection with our partner, to the present moment. And throughout this book, Dr. Brotto shares a lot of research that supports how mindfulness-based therapies and mindfulness-based trainings significantly improve women's sexual desires, their ability to be more aroused, higher levels of satisfaction, because they are working on strengthening their attention to be in the present moment. So they're letting go, they're learning how to let go of maybe some of these inner thoughts or narratives that I'm broken or sex isn't enjoyable. And instead, they're learning some skills to help them live more in the present moment where they can build intimacy. So I want to pause here and ask you, wherever you are, to tune in and think about, when was the last time you felt fully present in your body with yourself, maybe with a partner, in an intimate way? So when was the last time you yourself or you with your partner felt present in your body in an intimate way? Not thinking about the text or the projects that you need to do or what's next, but just giving yourself permission to be. I remember years ago, I think this is when I lived in Buenos Aires, I was having an intimate moment with my partner, my now husband, and I noticed I was not in my body. Like, I was totally wrapped up in my mind of like, oh, what's next? Like, what are we doing after this? Or what are our dinner plans? And I remember having this like visceral moment of, if I keep training my brain that it's okay to kind of zone out or to think about the future stuff, I know that I am not going to enjoy what's here in the present moment. And I remember telling myself, like, bring your practice to right here, like, notice what's present. Can you feel his lips on your body? Can you notice what sort of tingles start to spread throughout my own body? Noticing breath, noticing like just how my body wants to move. And it was a very powerful moment. Like, I really remembered this moment. And I want to say, like, since then, of course, there have still been moments where I feel like I can want to tap out and think about what's next. But I've noticed that, and I can bring my attention back into my body and back into the connection of what's happening in the present moment with me and my partner. So let's define what mindful sex is and mindful intimacy is. And in Brotto's work, she uses a definition that's linked to John Kabat-Zinn's definition of mindfulness, which is mindfulness is being non-judgmental and being present in the moment with awareness. And so when we think about this in the context of sex and intimacy, it's about bringing your attention into your body, noticing sensations, noticing thoughts, noticing emotions, being with everything that's arising without judgment, and bringing your attention to your relationship with your partner or with yourself, and noticing, does the mind go off in this direction with distractions? Am I on autopilot with my actions? And can I have awareness of those patterns? And again, when we have awareness, we then have choice. So then can I choose presence? Can I choose to bring my attention back to what's happening right here? Oh, there's tingles. Oh, there's warmth. Oh, there's movement. So when we connect to pleasure, when it comes to sex, it's not just being anchored in the body, but it's also being anchored in the mind. So can we be with our body and also let our mind be right here? Because if we're just having this body sensation, but your mind is somewhere else, the experience ends up being flat. There's a disconnect. So we need both of our minds and our bodies when we're connecting sexually and when we're building intimacy. When we think about intimacy, a really beautiful way is if we slow that word down. So instead of intimacy, it's into me you see. So can we slow it down where we can look inside somebody else, where we can look and be within ourselves? And can we see what's here? Into me you see. Brotto talks about how many different mindfulness exercises can support us building some skills and some tools of how to build this sense of awareness, of noticing, of slowing life down so that we can be present to it. And one of them is about connecting to our senses. And this can be a really helpful mindful eating practice. Brotto talks about this in the book. There's a raisin exercise. And this is also an exercise I learned when I did MBSR training. It's an exercise I've taught before. And it's really powerful to practice mindful eating, to slow down enough to be with everything that's there. So in this exercise, we take a raisin, and a raisin's pretty small, right? Raisin is something that's maybe usually in a trail mix or in cereal. And it's not really enjoyed alone, unless you're a little kid, eating out of the raisin boxes. But even if you're eating a raisin alone, you're probably throwing 5 raisins in your mouth at once. And so this practice is about just taking one raisin and slowing it down to notice all of the ridges of the raisin, right? Noticing the colors, the different angles of the raisin. And then feeling the raisin in your hands, noticing, does it feel sticky or smooth or bumpy? And maybe smelling the raisin, noticing the sweetness. Maybe certain memories come to mind as you think of that raisin or smell that raisin. And then putting the raisin in your mouth and just noticing again the texture of the raisin on your tongue. How does that feel different than holding the raisin in your fingers? And notice, is there an urge to just want to chew it and swallow it? But what is it like to just hold it on your tongue, to explore it? And then maybe inviting in some chewing, and notice even that sensation of chewing. Where does the raisin go in your mouth to chew? And do you notice more saliva starts to build as you chew? And then what starts to happen as the raisin dissolves? And how does that feel as it goes down your throat? And what are the tastes that start to develop on your tongue? And any other memories that start to arise? So this practice, if you do it live, can be such a rich experiment. And this exercise helps us to remember that we can slow down to savor things, that we can slow down to notice. We can connect to these micro sensations. And we can notice, does our mind wander and think like, oh, now I want raisin cookies? Or can we start to notice how we feel towards the raisin? I know some people hate raisins, so just noticing that like disgust or that pushing away, or maybe some people love raisins and you notice you want more, your mouth wants more, your fingers want more. So inspired by Brotto's work, we'll kind of expand this practice and think about how can we use this mindful eating practice, but expand it into a more intimate and mindful sex experience. And we can think about it in 3 pillars. So the first being attention to sensations. So can we bring awareness into the body and notice temperature in the body? In our body, in our partner's body, can we notice touch? Is it smooth, bumpy, hairy, dry, itchy? Can we notice rhythm, internal shifts? And then the second pillar, to notice where our attention goes to various thoughts or emotions. So noticing, does the mind wander like, oh, what's for dinner? Or wow, I'm really tired. I woke up early today. Oh man, did I turn the oven off? Right? And can we, again, just note them? Notice, my mind is going there, and then bringing it back. Can we notice maybe some emotions that come up, like shame or pressure to perform or fear of like, oh, maybe I'm not good at this, or I'm not doing a good enough job for my partner. Maybe there's grief, there's anger, there's joy that shows up, there's fun. And so again, can we notice these various thoughts and emotions without judgment? Having thoughts and emotions is part of our human experience. And so we don't want to push it away or ignore them, but we want to welcome them in and then also let them go, bringing our attention back. And so this third pillar is, can we bring our attention back and attune to connection? Can we attune to connection with self and or our partner? So noticing how you and your partner are present. Are you making eyes at each other? Are you kind of moving your body in synergetic ways? Noticing these micro movements of presence, of kindness, of vulnerability, and reminding ourselves that when having sex with somebody else, that it takes 2. So know that it's not just about one of you being more mindful, but it's about both of you practicing mindfulness. It's about both of you bringing this sense of awareness into your connection. So when you connect to these 3 pillars, this is an opportunity to create more intimacy in your life, to shift out of autopilot doing robotic connection in the mind, and instead connect to presence, connect to intentionality, to choice, to openness, to connection. So if we expand this experience and we use the framework of the mindful hand of self-care now, I want to dive deeper into each finger of the mindful hand of self-care and how these practices can support us building more intimacy. So the thumb of the mindful hand of self-care represents our mind. And it's intentionally our thumb because we can't do a lot, right? We can't pick up a cup. We can't use our phone as well. We can't eat with a fork as well without our opposable thumb. So our thumb helps us do so much in life. And that's the same when it comes with our mind, our mindset. We need a mindset to support us. And the thoughts and the beliefs that we have deeply matter. When it comes to intimacy with self and with others, thinking about what are the common thoughts that I have when it comes to intimacy and sex. Are there thoughts of, I'm not good enough, I need to perform? Is this going to be good? Is this going to be worth it? And Brotto talks about the beliefs that we have around sex, right, really matter. Do we grow up in a world, whether it was religion or family culture or society, that just told us sex is only for reproduction, or sex is only for performance, or sex is used as a form of control? And so even noting some of those deeper beliefs you have about sex and intimacy can be really helpful to uncover a meaningful relationship to this practice. So a helpful tip here could be, before you go on a date, before an intimate moment with a partner, before connecting with your spouse or your boyfriend, girlfriend, is to pause and take a moment and observe what your mind is doing. Can you name and note the thought? Like, I'm worried about this, or I'm thinking about this. And then just imagine those thoughts like they are clouds in the sky, and you're watching them just float on by, and you're bringing your attention back into the body. So as we continue with this framework of the mindful hand of self-care, the pointer finger represents fuel. And when I talk about fuel, I'm talking about nourishment, food, the things that we ingest in our bodies that give us nutrients, that give us gasoline in our tanks. So I welcome you to think about how you're fueling yourself and how that can affect your relationship to your body, feeling comfortable in your body, feeling connected to our pelvic region, our pelvic bowls, our genitals. So to feel like we're eating and digesting, right? Because this is also a place in our body where we're digesting and letting things out of our body, that we're thinking about nourishment in a way that's like, how am I going to feel the best in this space? Then the middle finger represents movement, it represents the body, right? How we move and be in our bodies. And this is intentionally, movement is the middle finger, because it's typically the first thing when life gets busy, when life gets overwhelming, we say, fuck you too. We ditch movement. We ditch the idea of being connected to our bodies because we just want to be in our heads and we want to be in the doing. But when we connect to the middle finger, when we connect to movement and being in our bodies, it invites us to anchor into, what does this body want? How does it want to move? How does it want to breathe? Notice the slowing down sensation, or does it want to speed up? How does it want to stretch or be moved around or move something around? And normally we want to go slow, not to say like this is what you need to do, but slowing down is a really helpful way to connect to the body, because we start to notice all the nuances in these micro movements that we don't connect to when we're moving fast. A helpful practice here, maybe before an intimate moment, before a date, before getting in the quote unquote mood, is to practice like 2 minutes, 5 minutes to arrive in the body. And can you do a gentle body scan starting at the feet and connecting to the sensations in the legs, noticing sensations in the hips and the torso, sensations in the upper body, the neck, the shoulders, the jaw, sensations of the breath. And just inviting, getting curious of what's happening in this present moment, and can I pay attention without judgment? And what happens if I practice softening and slowing down enough just to pay attention? Then we'll go into the ring finger of the mindful hand of self-care, and ring represents space. And so we're talking about this intimate space that we're connecting to. And so I welcome you to really think about what's in your physical space that supports intimacy. Maybe removing phones or screens, maybe noticing what kind of light you want. You want dim light or bright light. Are there certain distractions in your room that would be helpful to put away or to throw a blanket over? Whatever you need to do to support your physical space, even adding certain types of music sometimes or scents can be very helpful. Candles. So can you think of this space being a portal that you or you and your partner get to enter to feel really present and connected with one another? The last finger of our hand is the pinky finger, and the pinky represents renewal, represents rest and renewal. And it's intentionally the pinky finger because we typically don't think about rest and renewal as a necessary part of how we care for ourselves, but it is an essential part. And that's how we typically think about our pinky finger. We think, oh, it's just that little finger on the end, but it means so much to us and we need it to thrive. Brotto talks about how physical pain and how low desire to have sex often comes when rest isn't present in one's life, when there's a lot more stress. And so we really want to invite rest in, right? How many times have you heard, oh, I'm too tired, I'm not in the mood to do this? Like we feel disconnected from our bodies when our energy or batteries are at zero or are very low. So whether it's before sex or after sex, maybe taking a moment, a minute or two to lie together alone or by yourself and allow your body to rest. Notice your body, acknowledge what your body just did, breathe, maybe offering some gratitude to the experience. Hopefully it was enjoyable. Allowing yourself to receive the pleasure. Hopefully it was pleasurable. And allowing that space of rest to really help integrate the intimacy into your system. So that's the mindful hand of self-care and how we can use this framework to also support ourselves, building more connection to one another, building more intimacy and connection to ourselves and each other. I posted on Instagram that I was going to do an episode on mindful sex. I got a lot of questions, and one of the questions was like, what do you do about like how when a partner is distracted, you're feeling present, but you notice a partner is distracted, like how do you get present with one another? And this might feel corny, like you're kind of on a couples retreat off in the jungle, but it's a really powerful practice to help you both enter the same place and space. And so whether you want to sit down looking across from each other face to face, whether you want to lie down, both be lying next to each other, you choose the position that feels best for you. And maybe closing your eyes if that feels safe. You can always keep them open. And maybe placing one hand on your heart or your abdomen or somewhere on your body that feels pleasant, and placing the other hand, your other hand on your partner where it feels pleasant for them. So maybe their heart or their abdomen or their face. And see if you can stay here for a few minutes, like 2 to 3 minutes. It doesn't have to be very long. And just feel each other's bodies. Maybe feel the temperature, the texture, maybe sense them breathing, their own rhythm. And then at the same time, sensing your own body and place in space, sensing your own breath, noticing and gently scanning what's happening inside of your own mind and body. So this can help you shift out of autopilot mode, out of the busyness and into, we are right here together. Let's take this pause together. And then just notice how intimacy or sex starts to build from there. Another practice, which again is not about going to a place of orgasm, but building that place of intimate connection, can be practicing slow touch. So whether it's just you or you and your partner, can you choose a place in your body? It could be your forearm, it could be your hand, it could be the neck, it could be your left calf, like whatever it is for you, and spend just a minute and a half slowly and intentionally touching that area, tickling that area, kissing that area, like exploring that area. And there's no, again, like pressure for that to build or go anywhere, but just being present to notice temperature, texture, rhythms, impulses. What are the thoughts that arise? What are the emotions that are coming up? And then maybe switching turns and allowing yourself to receive as your partner explores touch on your body. So these practices get us out of our head and get us more curious, connecting to the various sensations of life. How often have you maybe eaten something and were like, I'm so hungry, I don't even know what that tasted like. Or I was scrolling my phone, I have no idea what that tasted like. Or I don't even know what I just ate or what was on my plate. Right? We sometimes get so wrapped up in the doing, right? We're not present to, wow, I really tasted the lettuce in that sandwich and the juiciness of the tomato and the crunch of the bacon and the squishiness and crunchiness of the bread, right? Like when we slow down, we actually can realize, wow, this sandwich has so many things going on. And the same is true of our bodies and intimacy and connection with one another. Another beautiful practice, this isn't one to necessarily get into intimacy, but maybe after you've had some intimacy or some mindful sex, is to take a pause and share with your partner what you really enjoyed, what felt really good. Or if you're with yourself, like take out your journal and notice, what did I like? What felt really good about that? And see if you can be mindful of your language, making sure that you're not judging yourself or criticizing yourself, but being really kind and curious. So some other questions that came in through Instagram, one of them was like, what do you do if you don't feel in the mood, right? Or you don't have that desire for sex anymore? Maybe you've been in a relationship for a really long time and you just feel like that spark isn't there, or you just notice like, I'm just not really sexually aroused these days. Brotto talks about this in her book a lot, highlighting how common it is to have low sex drive. And again, being mindful of the thoughts or the beliefs or the judgments we have about ourselves, that we're not broken, nothing's wrong with us. And also recognizing the life we live in, right? That life is really stressful. It's very overwhelming. And so that's a lot of context to be happening inside of our brains and bodies. And we sometimes need some more tools of how to manage the noise. And when you practice mindfulness, from her research, she shows that it actually builds interest. So when you slow life down enough, and again, you start really small to think about, what's here for me to pay attention to? So we're moving away from judging self, but instead getting curious. Like, what does my body want right now? What would feel pleasant? What would feel good? Even just practicing noticing the thoughts and beliefs that I have about intimacy. Can you just start there? And you'll start to notice that once you kind of dig into those deeper beliefs, that it starts to build more desire for sex, more curiosity, more willingness to be open to explore. Now, this is a really common question I get when teaching meditation and mindfulness. And even in coaching practice, in my coaching sessions, it comes up like, why do I want to slow down? Why is slowing down beneficial? Won't slowing down make things worse? Right? Think of how often when you're in like an exercise class and the teacher's like 20 more crunches and you try to do the crunches like as fast as possible to get the 20 and then bow out. But when we go fast, we actually lose connection to what's present. So slowing down actually makes things better. So we're not bypassing what's happening. When we go fast, we can bypass it, right? I've used this example before, but when you drive fast on a highway, you miss the sign. You're not able to read it. So when you go slow enough, you can actually read it. You can notice what's here. So slowing down actually invites more richness, more intensity, more depth. Another question is around, like, what do you do around pain or physical issues? And again, me, myself, not being a sex therapist or a psychologist, I welcome you to do some of that deeper work with experts in that field. However, noting that, mindfulness is not a fix all end all practice. It doesn't magically just like make sex amazing. However, what mindfulness does help us with over time, not overnight, but it gives us this pathway to presence. It helps us build a deeper connection to our body. It helps us have a relationship to our thoughts and our emotions that we can get some space from, so we're not identifying with them as easily. Having a mindfulness practice can be really helpful in this area. There's a lot of research out there that even just bringing mindful awareness to pain, to physical discomfort in the body, regardless of sex, helps ease the pain over time, because we build a relationship with it where it's not feeling like it's interfering with our life, but we're instead able to just allow it to be there, and yet we're still in our bodies. As we bring this episode to a close, I welcome you to let all of this information, all of these different practices and frameworks to just settle, and ask yourself to maybe pick one exercise or one commitment that you want to practice this next week when it comes to building intimacy with yourself and or a partner. So maybe that's taking that minute to get grounded in your body before inviting an intimacy. Maybe that's practicing with your partner for you both to get grounded and connected. Maybe that's practicing just noting what sensations are in your body throughout the day as you build that mind-body connection. So there's so many things that you can do to really help you strengthen your mindfulness muscles and allow that to support your intimacy, to allow that to support better sex in your life and more pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Center in the City podcast. I can't wait to hear what resonates, what other questions you have. Definitely check out Dr. Brotto's work and share this episode with somebody that you care about, whether it's your partner or a friend. Let's support each other, building more intimate connection with ourselves and the ones we love. Until next time, stay centered.
Life doesn't pause when you're sick. Vaccines against respiratory illnesses can help protect you and give you more playtime with your best friend. Depending on age and health status, vaccinations for flu, COVID-19, RSV, or pneumococcal infection may be recommended. Vaccines can help keep you from having a rough time. Learn more at cveep.org/vaccines-protect. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and CVEEP, fighting infectious respiratory disease.